guys, it's time to visit again. It's me, Deborah, and here's my co-host Willie, and we are ready for episode number 13 of Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, lucky 13. This is a podcast about my crafting, which I like to do all the crafts. I knit, I crochet, I sew, I quilt, I make baskets, I make jewelry, I do needlework, pretty much anything I can get my hands on. I am also a professor of physics and astronomy at a local four-year university where I teach a variety of classes, including astrophysics majors classes, general education, physical science classes, and I also volunteer to run the planetarium for school groups and community groups. And also, I am a third-generation farmer. I live here on my 170-acre farm in the foothills of the Arkansas Ozarks. My family has lived here for over a century, and I bought this farm from my parents in 2005. And I raise grass-fed beef, I raise horses, I have show-quality rabbits, and heritage poultry. I'm also sort of a haven for a variety of rescue animals. I have several miniature horses, miniature donkeys, standard donkeys, a miniature mule who thinks she rules the roost named Pumpkin. And then I also have, as you can see from here, my sweet little co-host, I am fur kid mom to 14 dogs, 5 indoor cats, and an undetermined number of outside cats. So I am tickled that you're here. I want to welcome you back if you're a returning viewer. If you're a new viewer, welcome to the Funny Farm. And so sit back, get you something to cool the drink, and let's visit on episode number 13 of Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. Okay, if you're looking for me on social media, my farm Facebook page is the same as my YouTube channel name. It is Buckthorn Farms. And I also have an Instagram account and on Ravelry. You can find me both places as Doc Firewoman. Then also we have a Ravelry group for the podcast, Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, and you can go there to find out about our charity make-along. And we're getting down to the short rows on the charity make-along. It ends on July the 2nd, and we are aiming to make things to donate to some charity, whether it's local or national or however you want to do it. It can be any kind of craft, sewing, quilting, crocheting, knitting, I don't care. I'm in the process of starting my second top for the local hospice house. We've had some neat cancer-kicking critters made. We've also had some cat comforters for a local rescue, pet rescue, and a variety of other things are there. There's both a chatter thread and an FO thread, and I'm going to draw, I believe, from both threads for prizes. The prizes that we have some Lamb's Pride bulky weight yarn donated through Paradise Fibers. We also have a beautiful skein of hand-dyed yarn from Logan at Leon Alexander Yarns. We also have some great bags. Jasmine from Tesla Knits donated 4 great project bags and notions sets. I'm going to donate a pattern of the winner's choice up to $10 in value off of Ravelry. And also, my friend Vanessa just finished her ups and downs sock pattern and got it on Ravelry. She is from the podcast A Historian Knits, and she was kind enough to donate a pattern to me for being the test knitter, but I had wanted to buy one from her anyway because a portion of her proceeds from the sale of her pattern goes to a local homeless shelter. So I wanted to purchase a pattern, so in a roundabout way, I guess she gave us a pattern because she gave me one, so I'm going to use my purchase to purchase a copy of the Ups and Downs pattern for the winner from the charity make-along. So we have a few really nice prizes. So if you think you would be interested in doing that, just hop on over to the Ravelry group and check us out. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We're going to come back. Hi, Willie. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about some finished objects that I have. Okay, so if you'll notice, if you're a regular viewer of the podcast, you'll notice that I missed a week last week. Time just got away from me, and I really didn't have anything finished, and so I wanted to get some things finished to show to you. And so I just ended up, you know, it was Monday had gone by, and then I got into Friday, and then I thought, well, if I'll just wait till the following Monday, I can just do another podcast. But I did publish a shorty video of my Philly Trixie, so hopefully you'll go watch that. But I do have some finished objects to show you this week. And the first thing that I will show you is they're all riding around in a basket that I made. Okay, this is just a simple gathering basket that I made. I'm kind of aggravated at it because it was not what I really intended to make, but my neighbor, Connie, her and her husband are very good friends of mine. They have lived down the road here ever since I moved home, and they also mow my lawn, and they help me with my animals, and we have rounded up many horses in the middle of the night. Not many as in number, but many as in size in the middle of the night a couple of times when the gate has gotten messed up. She said, oh, I would love to have a basket to put flowers in, so I think this would be perfect for that. It was supposed to be a different shape. The handle is, I ordered the 14-inch tall and 10-inch wide handle when I should have ordered the 14-inch wide and 10-inch tall handle to make the basket. So I ordered some of those, and I'm going to make a gathering basket. Sasha and her mother and I got together and had a girls' day of basket making the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And we made these. So I'm going to give this to my friend Connie as a gift just because, you know, because they helped me a bunch. And then I've got some handles to make the right shaped basket. I think if I remade with this handle again, which I'm going to because I ended up ordering 4 of these that are the wrong size, I'm going to go up higher and I'll probably put more color. So I'll probably do like either 2 chains or I'll do like a 5 color chain on it. But anyway, so that's just a simple gathering basket. It's holding my other FOs, okay? Now, the first yarny FO I have to show is I finished my A Mother's Gift Mystery Knit-Along by the Periscoping Sisters. Now, I have not woven in my ends. I have blocked this. Of course, now it's all wadded up. But I have blocked this, and I'm going to make tassels out of the blue to put on it. And I'm going to use lobster clasps so that I can attach them and remove them easily for blocking or washing or whatever. So this shawl has an interesting shape. It's sort of an arrow or a pennant shape. It's pretty long, but it's very lightweight. I chose 2 yarns that are both single ply. The white with just a few blue flecks is Expressions Fiber Arts. They're pearlescent silk fingering. It's 50-50 silk and merino, and its colorway is called Polar Bear. It was one of the charity yarns to donate to the World Wildlife Fund. And then the blue is by Primrose Yarn Company on their Adelaide base. It's 75% merino, 25% nylon in a colorway called Starlord. And you can see it's got a fairly loose gauge. I'm kind of a loose knitter, so this will be a great summertime wear, I think. So it's got 3 points, and I'm going to put tassels on all of the points. So I did block this and wash it, or wash it and block it the other day, yesterday as a matter of fact. It's kind of funny because I had them laying out in the back of my truck and everything. So that is my Mother's Gift MKAL. I got that finished. The next thing that I got finished is a long overdue Yule gift. As I have mentioned before, my veterinarian, who is also a very, very good friend of mine, Dr. Angel Jordan, we both share a love for all things Wonder Woman. So Bean Sprout Boutique on Ravelry had made, and I'm sure many of you have seen this, the Wonder Woman hat. And it comes in sizes all the way from infant up to adult sizes. And I had purchased the yarn. It's just a simple acrylic yarn. Since she is a vet, I thought she might appreciate something she could just throw in the washing machine. I purchased the yarn last fall with all the good intentions of getting it made as her Yule gift, and it never happened. So after I finished my Mother's Gift shawl on Friday, I got fired up and went and grabbed my crochet hook and my yarn and sat up watching reruns of The West Wing and started on this, and I finished it Saturday. So, you know, crochet is, I'm much faster at crocheting. Of course, hats don't take any time either. Now, I did modify the pattern a little bit. I did add a row of front post, back post, double crochet at the bottom to add a little bit of ribbing to the bottom of this. And I wanted it a little bit longer. I tried it on myself, so I think she'll be satisfied with that. So I think I'm going to make a few more of these. I've got a couple of friends. A good friend of mine recently had her first grandchild, so I may make one for that little girl. And then I've got a couple of other friends that have young daughters, so I thought these are very quick to make up. And, you know, we all need some strong women role models in our life, right? So yay for Wonder Woman. Okay, then after I finished that on Saturday, I thought, okay, well, I want to make something else. And I had purchased some time back from One Dog Woof the classic stuffed bunny pattern. Okay. And I have made a few of her patterns already, and I really do like them. So I made this little guy. I started him on Saturday evening, again, watching reruns of The West Wing. I've been sort of re-watching that. That's one of my favorite programs ever. And well, y'all know my political views, like I said, are a little liberal snowflake, and sometimes I just can't watch the news, so I watch The West Wing and pretend it's the news. Anyway, so I used up some scrap yarn that I had. This is the super bulky yarn, so this makes up incredibly fast. His little nose is embroidery floss, and then I put on some safety eyes. And because I wanted to use up all of these yarns, I didn't want any scraps left, I made him a ginormous pom-pom butt. Okay, so a pom-pom of extraordinary size, if you're familiar with The Princess Bride. So, but anyway, so this is my classic stuffed bunny, and this is going to go in my fair entry box for my crocheted toys entry. All right, and all three of these were from Stash, so they qualify for the Happy Knitting Podcast Summer Stash Down. So I'm pretty tickled about that. So, yeah, so those are my FOs for this week. So I'm pretty proud of myself. I haven't worked on my Helen Stewart shawl. I started to pick it up, and I may pick it up tonight because I don't have anything on the needles at the moment, and I thought, well, you know, if you could do a row or two a day, you know, just in the evenings, maybe you could get that sucker done in the next month or so. But anyway, so those are my FOs for this week. So now we're going to move on to works in progress. Okay, so I don't have any yarny works in progress other than my Helen Stewart mystery knit along or impressionist shawl knit along. There's a fly flying around in here, and if he lands, I'm going to swat him, but he hasn't landed yet. But I do have a couple of sewing works in progress that I will share with you. The first one is I've got my strips cut out for my other lap quilt. So I'm going to do a red and white one. So this is my red fabric that I'm going to use for those. And what I do to make those 9-patch blocks is I sew a series of strips together where I put a red, a white in the middle, and then a red. So I make a row of 3. And then when I cut those, that gives me the blocks that are the outside blocks, so the red, white, red. And then I'll do a set that's white, red, white, so it'll be the mirror image of this. And that gives me my center pieces. So that gives me some speed piecing techniques to do to make it go by a little bit quicker. So I'm going to start on that. I've got my strips cut out, and so I'm going to get started on that because I want to get those 2 tops done and get those quilted by July the 2nd for the charity make-along. Now, the other sewing FO that I have here, if you remember a couple of weeks ago in Future Crafting, I showed you the little Christmas teddy, okay, little patchwork teddy bear, one of those printed panels. I started on him last night. So I am up to, I had got his little, well, I had showed you his little coat that I had started last time. So I finished his little coat, okay. Now, the only thing that I'm going to do different is I bought, and my camera is actually sitting on it, some fur, some white fur trim, faux fur trim, and I'm going to put around the arms and on the, where all this white is, basically. And then I'm going to sew Christmassy looking buttons on over top of the white trim. I'm also going to take fabric paint, I think, and accent the little buttons and eyes and mouths on the snowman, and go around the Christmas tree and also do the snowman on the back, okay? And I've got some little, somewhere I've got some little buttons that look like holly leaves and berries that I'm going to sew on there. But I think it'll make his little face and his little button stand it. Or I've got some black, little tiny black pom-poms I may sew on there instead. So that's his little coat. Then this is as far as I've gotten with the little bear. Oops, I dropped his hat. Okay, I've got his arms and I've got his body put together. I've got to sew him up And then here are his legs. I've got to sew his legs on. His legs are sewn on with 2 buttons. You just sew through with a large doll needle on either side. So I've got that done. And then his little hat just fell down on the floor. Hang on, Willie. Okay. Here's his little hat. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put the white faux fur trim and then put a little pom-pom on here. Okay, so when you put his little hat on, you sort of put it jauntily over one ear here. So kind of like that. All right. So, and you will style it a little bit better than that. But anyway, so I'll get him done, I hope, tonight. Get all his little pieces sewn together and sewn up. And he's got a little scarf here too. So all those little pieces will go together to make the Christmas patchwork teddy. Okay. And I put a little, if you look at his little nose, I've got some stuffed animal noses. So I gave him a little nose. I'm also going to sew, I've got some black buttons I'm going to sew on for his eyes. Alright, and it's just those little extra touches that make these things extra special. You know, they look just fine made up the way that they are, but, oh, and I've got to embroider his little mouth on too. So I'll do that. But that's what kind of elevates them to the next level, is by adding those little extra touches to the doll. So, yeah, so I got that started. Okay, and those are my 2 works in progress. I don't have a lot else to show you because you've already seen the Helen Stewart Impressionist shawl 4,000 times, so I'm not gonna, there's no point in showing it again. So, but I do have some yarny things that I will talk about in future crafting. Okay, so in future crafting, I had mentioned I had ordered the incorrect handle for that basket that I had shown. So here is the correct handle. It's 14 inches wide by 10 inches tall, and it goes long ways across the basket. So the length of the basket would be this way. It's supposed to be a garden gathering basket, so I ordered a couple of these. Now I order most of my supplies, just outright supplies, from NC Basket Works, North Carolina Basket Works. And then, because they have a huge variety of supplies, they also have tons and tons of free patterns on their website, so I will link their website. I order a lot of kits from Jill Choate Basketry, and in fact, I have a really beautiful 2 kits that I need to make from her that I want to get done before the county fair, because I definitely want to enter one of them in the county fair. She's the one that I ordered that beautiful Cherokee bushel basket from. But you can get just handles and reed and stain and all that stuff from NC Basket Works. So I ordered the handles, and I want to make myself a gathering basket, and I ordered a couple extra to make for gifts. And then, as I was looking on the website, I found the pattern for this baker's basket. Okay, there's a special handle for it that's long and low, all right? And it has supports that go underneath the bottom of it, if you look on the picture there. And this is a free pattern on her website, or on the website for North Carolina Basket Works. All right, so I'm going to make a couple of these because I have someone in mind that I think that this would make a really great Christmas gift for. So I'm going to make one of these as a Christmas gift, and then I ordered one to make for myself because you can never have too many baskets. That's my philosophy, right? Okay. All right, so the next thing, and this is the long-awaited treat for myself. Tonight, at some point, I am going to wind yarn, and I'm going to start my Kraken Shawl. I have been waiting and waiting and waiting to start this, and I had told myself I wouldn't start it until I finished the Helen Stewart one, and I thought, oh, I may never finish that thing. So I'm going to treat myself, right? I'm going to treat myself. Life is short. So I am going to wind yarn for this. The yarn, I showed it some time ago, but since it's been a minute, I will show it again. This is from Suutra Fiber Arts out of Massachusetts. I met her through a mutual friend, my friend Ray, who lives in Maine and has a farm, and I love visiting with her. We're sort of twins separated at birth, I guess you could say. Her friend Rue owns Suutra Fiber Arts. She has an Etsy shop, and she has beautiful yarn. And this is a colorway called Northern Lights. Okay? And that is a very appropriate name for that color. This is her Vase base. It is MCN base, and she was kind enough when she found out we had a mutual friend, she upgraded my order, which I thought was incredibly sweet. So I would love if you would give her some love and some business. She's got some beautiful colorways, but I'm going to wind this tonight. It is a DK weight shawl, so this is fingering weight that I'm going to hold double. Now, a couple of these have a little bit more green in them, and a couple of them are more solid. So I'm going to hold the solids together, the more solids together, and then I'm going to hold the more greens together and try to work the Kraken portion of the shawl in the more solid. But I don't think it's going to matter. I think it's going to be freaking gorgeous no matter what. So I'm going to start this or wind the yarn for it tonight. So maybe by next time I podcast, you will see some progress on that. So that again is Suutra Fiber Arts. The pattern, the Kraken, is by Two Hearts Crochet. She is the one who kindly provided for free the pattern for the solar system blanket. Now this is a pay-for pattern, but after she provided all that great information for the solar system blanket, I felt like it was only fair that I should throw her a little bit of business. And she has posted a tutorial on how to make those really beautiful tassels. And I like the idea of them being removable. She's using jewelry findings to remove them. And I've got lots of beads, so I see a lot of potential there. So I really want to get started on that tonight. Now, I'm also signed up to do the Risen Knits Walk the Block Mystery Knit Along. It is in week 2. I haven't even started, and I may not start on it until later. I kind of am wanting to do some crocheting and sewing right now. I'm kind of in that mode. That fly is getting on my nerves. It's the country. We have flies from time to time. He's going to die if he ever lands. But I do have my yarns for it. I had showed some yarn a couple of weeks ago, but realized that one of them was a DK weight yarn and that wasn't going to work. So I went by to pick up some yarn that Stephanie at Knit Two Together had been holding for me, and I decided to add to my yarns. Now, the way the pattern is designed, you can use anything from 3 to 12 different colors, and 6 and 7 Fibers was selling kits, but I wanted to try to work from stash. So the yarns that I had in my stash already were Kimarie Knacks Area 51, and then Primrose Yarn Company on their Sophia base called Bird Set Free with a little bit of purple in it. Chicken Coop Dyeworks sent me a mini as a thank you gift in an order that I had placed, and then I had some leftover Cascade Superwash Effects blue, and I thought, well, I would like to get there's 4. I would like to get 2 more. So I found these 2, which I think look nice together. This is Kimarie Knacks Lady Violet. It's a beautiful purpley violet color. And then this is Primrose Yarn Company Sophia Base Funhouse. So I think all of these together will look, see if I can hold them all up here together. Oops, sorry, Willie, didn't mean to bump you in the head there. I think holding all these together will look really, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold those or not. But anyway, so maybe you can get an idea there. Yeah, so those are what I'm going to use for my Walk the Block Mystery Knit Along. The idea behind that pattern by Risen Knits is it's supposed to have a lot of repetitive sections in it, and she's got some tips and tricks so that you can take your knitting out and walk with it and get more active, because, you know, we are in summertime. And in places where it is not boiling hot during the day, people like to get out and walk with their knitting. So I haven't been out walking in the middle of the day with mine because I've been working either on my farm or trying to avoid the heat. And we'll talk about that in the farm section. So those are my 2, or my 3 future crafting ideas. So that's really all the yarny content that I've got. I've got a few acquisitions, but they're not terribly yarny this week. So if that's all you're here for, thank you for coming by. But if you want to keep on listening and we'll talk about some science and some farm stuff, y'all hang out and we'll be right back. Okay, so some acquisitions that I want to share with you. Some of these are recent purchases and some of them not so much. Vanessa from A Historian Knits podcast had pointed out to me that there is a 4-day sweater knit-along. It's by Olive Knits, and it's something that I believe they do every year around the beginning of July. And she said, hey, you could do this for your birthday. And I thought, oh, Lord, I don't need another knit-along. So I thought, well, I'm going to take a little knitting break, and then that'll get me jazzed up to start for this. And then I saw the name of the pattern, and it looks pretty cool. It's called the Beekeeper Cardigan. And I thought, well, that's, you know, that's appropriate for me since I have bees. So I decided that I would participate in that. It will be the first time I've ever knit a sweater. I started a sweater back at Christmas, and it is sitting languishing. And Vanessa is actually having a Languishing Whips knit along, and I may pick it up and work on it as part of the sort of I don't know what I can't remember what she's calling it. I'm just jokingly calling it the Ghost of Christmas Past because I started that one around Christmas time, knit along. But anyway, so this is the yarn that I bought for the Beekeeper's Cardigan. Now this is not a color that I would normally wear for myself, but the beautiful thing about having gone my natural hair color here, which you can see is pretty white, I've still got a little bit of my actual reddish brown color back in the ponytail, I can get away with wearing a lot of different colors. So, and right now I've got the good old farmer's tan going on where my face and my arms are really dark brown and the rest of me is white as a sheet, but that's okay. Or the horse equestrian tan, if you want to call it that. But anyway, so I ordered a sweater's quantity of this actually from Craftsy. This is their Cloudborne fibers. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money to start with since I've never knit a sweater before. But this is a decent, nice yarn. It's a wool blend. Okay, and so this color is called Maize Heather. It doesn't have a strong heathering component to it, but I just thought it was really pretty. And the pattern has, she's already released what it looks like, so you know what you're getting into. It's an open front cardigan. It's got 3/4 length sleeves, and it's kind of a short cardigan, but I ordered some extra yarn, so I'm going to make mine a little bit longer because the way I am physically built, I have no hips. I'm an apple, okay? So, I've got no hips and no behind. And, I look really ridiculous on stuff that hits me at my waist, so I like to make things a little bit longer. So I ordered an extra skein or two of this yarn, to go ahead and make that, cardigan a little bit longer because it is top down. So I'll be able to do that. So that was my first acquisition. Now, my second yarny related acquisition, and I bought these some time ago. From time to time in my role as a college professor, I get asked to participate in focus groups or in review a textbook or something like that. And for my time, very often they will give you like an Amazon gift card. Well, I did one where there were several steps involved, and so I actually got a $100 gift card from Amazon, and so I loaded up on needles and stitch markers and everything, and I saw this set of ergonomic crochet hooks. Okay, and this is a woman-owned company, Athena's Elements. All right, and I ordered this through Amazon, and it goes from a 2mm, which is a size B, all the way up to an 8mm, which is a size L. And they've got the ergonomic handles on them, and that's what I use to crochet my classic bunny. And I'll tell you that I do like the way these handle. Now, I do have the one with the bulb handle on it for the smaller stuff, and I think I would like that better if I were crocheting something large, because that gives me something to rest my hand on. But for something quick like that bunny, this was a great deal. And this set was not terribly expensive. I want to say it was maybe $14. You know, which is very, very reasonable because you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hooks in this set for $14. So that's by Athena's Elements, and it's ergonomic crochet hooks. Okay, so that's another yarny acquisition that I have. Now, I rarely ever look at Groupon. rarely. I have purchased dog beds from Groupon before, and so now I get all the emails, and I can't quite bring myself to remove it from the mailing list, because I thought, well, what if there's some really good deal that comes up? Well, about a month and a half ago, I saw a Groupon purchase for some art supplies. And the first thing that I saw was for a set of oil pastels, and it was very reasonable. I think it was less than $20. It's 60 oil pastels, and there's all the different colors that you get. Alright, so I bought that, and then about 2 weeks later, I saw another Groupon for this set of Prismacolor colored pencils. Now, I used to love to draw and paint and do all that stuff, and I haven't done that in years and years and years, but I have a very good friend, Susan, who paints. She does beautiful watercolor portraits of pets and things like that. And I was kind of inspired to try to pick back up doing that. So I thought, okay, I'm going to buy myself some art supplies. And so I also purchased the correct paper. I got oil pastel and colored pencil paper. And so I'm going to try to dig back into my inner artist this next few weeks. It's been a very long time since I've done any of that. And I never really did a lot with oil pastels, but I thought, well, it'd be something new you could learn. So I got those. The drawing pads were on sale for 50% off, and then both of the Groupons were... The colored pencils, I think, were like $25, and then the oil pastels were like less than $20. And I had bought someone that I dated a set of these, the same set of colored pencils on Amazon, and it was a lot more than what I paid for it this time. So I was proud to get those. I almost told him to give them back. Jerk. Anyway, so yeah, so those are sort of some of my acquisitions that I've gotten that are more crafty related, and now I'm going to sort of divert into junking acquisitions, because me and Miss Betsy went junking the last 2 weekends. They had the last 2 weekends there have been several garage sales. 2 weeks ago we were going to go to a flea market in Clarksville, which is about 40 miles away, and she got on the little 2-lane highway, and we went through Russellville, which is the bigger town next to where I live, just because we felt like driving that way, and we saw a sign for a rummage sale at the Catholic Church. And we were going through, there was about 7 in the morning, because she and I are both, you know, early birds, and we like to get out early and do stuff. So we went in there, and we found some very good, interesting purchases. And then, as we were driving through town, we went through, and there was a man and his wife set up just on the side of the road, and they had some interesting things. I actually purchased another dessert plate set, like I needed another one. And then we went into this little store, and it was kind of one of those that I thought, are we fixing to be at the beginning of a CSI episode? Because there was this guy sitting there in a recliner in this, like, flea market in a strip mall with no electricity. I'm thinking, this is the way an episode of CSI starts. But anyway, I'm sure it was fine. Now, the day before, or the night before, there is a flea market not too far from us, and it's fairly new. It opened up in an old house that went from being sort of a event center to that kind of fell out, to then it was a neat primitive shop, and that kind of fell out, and now it's a flea market. And I had been eyeballing a pie safe. And it's not a terribly, like, old pie safe, but it's probably 50 years old. The girl said that her mother had bought it at the local furniture store, which we've all known about our whole lives. And it's sort of folk arty. And I really, really liked it. And she was having a 50% off sale to try to make room for new inventory. So I ended up buying the pie safe. Now, our local furniture store had sort of an interesting beginning, because there was 2 families that were related, and one of them owned a furniture store, and one of them was the local funeral home. And they were in the same building. And as a kid, I remember my grandmother, when we built the house that I live in now, she went to the furniture store to look for furniture, and my grandmother, I guess the polite word for her was she was thrifty. The impolite word for her was she was so tight she squeaked when she walked. So she wasn't going to buy new furniture. She was going to buy used furniture. So we were looking around, and I remember wandering around. I maybe was like 9 years old, 10 years old. And I wandered through this door into the room where the caskets were. And that's what happens when you have a furniture store and a funeral home right next to each other. So the casket models were all in this room, and I was like, okay, let's not go there. I also used to get my hair cut. A very good dear lady who is now no longer with us. Her husband owned the local feed store, so her salon was in the feed store. So I used to go to get my hair done at the salon in the feed store. You know, small town life, ain't it wonderful? But anyway, so that pie safe had come from the furniture store when it was in its old location downtown. So I got that, and it worked out really great because now I can move all of my thrift store china in there, and I have 2 tea sets. I kind of joked because I have a German tea set and a Japanese tea set, and I said, well, if I could just get an Italian tea set, then I would be able to represent the Axis powers from World War II. Nobody gets that joke anymore, but, you know, anyway. So we did that, and then we went on up to the junk store that we were, or the flea market, I shouldn't say junk store, the flea market that we were headed to. And there was one thing in there that I wanted. Miss Hayes had found some stuff, and they really did have things staged very nice. And there is a Hoosier cabinet in there that is complete. It's got the flour sifter and everything. Someone has painted that thing, and it just made me sick because they didn't do a very, you know, the whole shabby chic is let's take an old piece of furniture and paint it. Well, that's fine if you make it look better, but they didn't. And one of these days, if I can put my money together, I'm going to go buy that and strip all that paint off of it. It's got the you know, the butcher block cutting top on it and the flour sifter, and it was a little bit pricey, but it would be worth it to me to go buy it. But there was one thing in there that I wanted. There was a book. It was a kid's book, and it didn't have a price tag on it. The price tag had come off of it, so the girl said, well, I can't sell it to you. So I got a little bit aggravated, and so I just decided that I would get on eBay, and I bought it. So the book is called The Year at Maple Hill Farm. And this is a children's book. Now, this is not a hardback. This is a reproduction print of it. But what this is it goes through each month, and it talks about what's going on the farm. And this book is written by Alice and Martin Provensen. And it was about the animals on their farm. So, like in April, you've got the baby chicks. Oops. In April, you've got the baby chicks. And then, you know, in the summertime, which is where they are, there's the horses fighting the flies. So I guess we'll pay homage to the fly that's flying around in here. And then, you know, at the end of the year, you've got the fall colors and the harvest and all of that. Now, it turns out, I read about this author. She actually just passed away in May at the age of 99 years old. And she wrote several children's books. There's also one that I ordered to go with it. It hasn't come in yet. It's called Our Animal Friends at Maple Hill Farm. And I thought, what a wonderful addition to my farm library, because this is the kind of person I aspire to be as a farm woman. Okay. So I found that. Then last weekend, this past weekend, Miss Hayes messaged me and she said, you know, I've been working all week. Would you like to go? There's a flea market or a rummage sale at the Lutheran church. And I said, sure, let's go to that. So I met her at like 7 o'clock in the morning again, and we went to the Lutheran church, and I said, well, let's go to Marva and Goodwill. And we drove up to Dover, which is a little bit north of here, to look for, I swear, I saw this junk store. I was going over to Shelly's house to get some cages, and I swear I saw this junk store, and then we couldn't find it. So perhaps I dreamed it. I don't know. But anyway, so we were going to do that, and then we came back, and we got back to Atkins, and she said, was there anywhere else you want to go? And I said, well, let's go to Morrilton and go to that one that's down there. And then she said, well, let's go to Oppelo too. There's a big flea market on the highway at Oppelo. So we made kind of a big round that day. So one of the things that I ran across and there was also that day, what's called Rummage Around the Rails, which is from Friends of the Depot, which the Russellville Depot, the restoration group, is called Friends of the Depot, and they had their big rummage sale that day. Now, the only thing I didn't like about that is it was incredibly crowded, and they would not let you in until 8 o'clock, and there was already like 50 people there at 8 o'clock, you know, to get in, and everything was really super crowded, so I was over that pretty quickly. But I did get an interesting thing there. Let's see if I can get this without knocking everything down. I found a scroll frame. Okay, I found a scroll frame with a telescoping arm on it, and it was $2. And I don't think it's ever been used, to be quite honest. So I found that. Then we went to, as I said, we went to Marva, and one of the things that I found at Marva was some, you know, I'm sure some elderly person had passed away, because these all look to have come from the same place. I found these bags of vintage trims, and there is some beautiful, 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 beautiful trim in here. Okay, some very expensive trims in these bags, because there's some pom-pom trim and that, and then this one. Some trims, you know, and I mean, not all of it's necessarily to my taste, but there's some gems in there, and they were $2 a piece, so I bought all 3 of them. Then one of the things that I found at Goodwill, and I'll get to this when I talk about science, but I'll show it, is I found this vase. Now, I don't know if it's Waterford, but it's crystal of some kind, because I can make it sing when I run my finger around it, and when you do that, it makes that beautiful tone. It doesn't just clink. Alright, so I found that, and that was $1, and it's incredibly heavy too. I mean, you could whack somebody with that or drop it on your toe and do yourself a world of hurt. And it's that starburst pattern. I got this at our Goodwill, local Goodwill. And then at the Apollo flea market, I found this textbook, and it was originally printed in 1903, and this was a reprint from 1908, and it's Elementary Principles of Agriculture. Okay, Elementary Principles of Agriculture, and it is all about, it talks about how to graft trees, and how to prune, and improving your soil, and different insects, and then different livestock. You know, it's got some really beautiful pictures in it, like, of course, these caught my eye, the different breeds of draft horses that you could have. Okay, so that's a Clydesdale, and then this is a Hackney, so that's kind of your two ends of your spectrum. Clydesdales are big draft horses, and then Hackneys are smaller, more like carriage type horses. Okay, but beautiful pictures. You know, and then there's an Angora goat, right, with a beautiful coat. So I thought that was a great book. I think I paid $1 for it. So I thought definitely, and you know, and the thing is there's some good wisdom in these books, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the farming section. But I found that. So those are my junking treasures that I found this week. So now we're going to come back and talk a little bit about science. Okay, so with science, I wanted to start with a mention of, I mentioned heat index last episode, and I looked for a formula to try to calculate it, and unfortunately it's not very straightforward. It's a power series. So the best way is I'm going to include a link to a chart for how you can find your heat index. For example, right before I started recording, I went and checked the temperature and the relative humidity. And my weather app says it's this temperature and it feels like whatever. Well, our temperature is 92 degrees, which I'm not going to convert that to Celsius. That's in Fahrenheit, but that's around 30 degrees Celsius. Okay, around 30 degrees Celsius. And then we have a 73% relative humidity, which is high. So the total effect of the heat plus the humidity means it feels like it's 114 outside. In other words, miserable. Okay, and today there is really not a breath of air blowing out there. Now, if the breeze is blowing and you can get in the shade, I usually find it's pretty tolerable. But when there's no breath of air blowing outside, that is a miserable temperature. And it's also very hard on the animals, and we'll get to that when we get to the farming section. So I was going to mention that I started teaching a class for a local alternative viewpoint, worldview center, I guess you could call it, on the astronomy of astrology. You know, I have, because of the kind of person I have lots of people that intersect those two worlds, okay, and I kind of ride that intersection because I am an astrophysicist, but I also know a lot of people who are astrologers, and I'm like, okay, they throw these words around, and I'm like, well, do you know what that means? Do you know why the moon has phases? Do you know, you know, what retrograde actually means? So I started teaching a 4-week class about what the science behind those words mean. And we're not getting into, oh, if your sun sign is this or whatever. I'm not getting into all that. But I am just talking to them about, you know, what does it mean for something to be in retrograde? What does that physically mean in the sky? So I'm teaching a 4-week class on that. And I started last Thursday, and I've got another one this Thursday. And this place where I'm teaching it at is called the Escape Ranch, and it's sort of an alternative healing and energy and spirituality center, and they also have an animal rescue there. And so normally they charge for the classes, and I knew they were kind of having a hard time with their animals, so I'm doing my part for free, and I'm letting them keep my class fees that I would get paid to help donate to the animal rescue. So try to help them out a little bit. And then I'm also going to do one on weather lore, and we'll talk more about that when we get closer to time. Now, I mentioned the crystal. All right, now, you notice when I picked up this vase and I pinged it, see how it makes that tone? Okay, crystal does that. All right, this is actually one of my grandmother's crystal glasses. It has a lower tone, but it's clearly ringing, okay? And I can actually run my finger around this and make it sing, okay? The other thing is crystal is generally thinner than a glass of the same size, and this is filthy dirty, so don't pay any attention to that. But anyway, so it's generally thin, all right? And then if you hold it up to the light, it will disperse the light into rainbows, all right? You got to go outside like in the sunlight to have it do that, but it will generally do that. Now, why does it do that? Well, when you look at how atoms are organized in a solid, there's different ways it can be organized. Regular glass has an organization called amorphous. And what that means is the atoms' bonds are just kind of every which way, this way, that way, this way, that way, sort of random. Crystal, on the other hand, is geometrically organized. And there's different organizational shapes to crystals. You know, glass crystal is different than, say, diamond lattice. The reason diamond is a diamond and graphite is graphite, even though they're both carbon, is graphite has an amorphous bond, which is why we can write with it and take atoms off to be able to use as pencil lead. But diamond doesn't do that. It's a very hard substance, the hardest known substance in nature, because it is bonded in what's called a diamond lattice. So the atoms are literally on geometric shapes in there. They can be cubes, they can be hexagonal, they can be all different shapes, but they are a regular geometric organization of these atoms inside that crystalline structure, and that's what gives it the different properties that it has. Now, the bonds between the atoms are like little tiny springs, and little springs vibrate, and what happens when you ping it or you run your finger around and you make it sing is you are vibrating those bonds, and you're creating a vibration such that it's resonating. Now, I'm going to link a really cool video of a crystal piano, basically, where they are playing songs, and I'm sure they're in Victorian times, these were very popular instruments, and I can't recall the name to mind of what they were called, but I'm going to put a link to some people playing Chopin on one of these crystal vibraphones, or whatever you want to call it. But the other reason that it creates the rainbows is we talked about dispersion. What happens is when the light passes through the crystal structure, it spreads, it bends the light, but the different colors bend by different amounts. So when you hold it up and you look through it, you see rainbows. And even just with a little bit of light that I've got coming through the window, I can see the rainbow patterns in the starburst. And if I could get a bright enough light on this, you might be able to see it too. I don't know. Probably not. But anyway, this doesn't have a mark on it, so I doubt that it's Waterford. But I just thought it was beautiful, and for $1, you bet. I thought it was such a neat, interesting shape. So, okay. So yeah, so that's why crystal glasses sing. That's also why you can take a glass and you can sing at it. Oh, you know, I'm not going to sing, but you can make it vibrate and you can break it. A professional singer can actually, a professional vocalist can actually cause, or anybody really can, but you can cause this thing to vibrate with a, what's called a resonance, and it'll make the vibration get bigger and bigger and bigger until the glass will literally shatter. I'm going to link a video to that. What is resonance? Resonance is where you are applying your force in rhythm with the vibration, basically. So it's like when you're pushing someone in a swing. You know, when you're pushing someone in a swing, you kind of get in the rhythm of that swing and you try to apply your push at a certain time in the swing to make them swing higher. It's not very much fun if you don't do it right and you just kind of crash into them. So a resonance is where you're applying that force to cause them to swing higher and higher and higher. That's called a larger amplitude. And so when you are singing at the crystal, your sound waves of your voice are driving that vibration and causing it to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's why you can break that glass. All right. So yeah, so there's a little science about crystal glasses. Okay, so we're going to come back and talk about farm life. Okay guys, so what's been going on the farm for the last couple of weeks? Well, as I mentioned, my sweet little filly, Trixie, had her second birthday. She was born on June the 6th. She was born about 3:30 in the afternoon. And I guess she's extra special to me because her mother was artificially inseminated. Her sire is actually a stallion out of Maryland, and so we did what I call, you know, jokingly, boyfriend in a box, where they ship the stallion semen to you, and then my vet inseminated her, and she was actually, Angel was actually inseminated on my mother's birthday, which was July the 7th. And knowing Angel as I do, I knew that she would deliver around, right around the 11-month mark, okay? It's funny because her first baby, which was Sterling, she carried him for 12 months and 10 days. Mr. Bewley, who owns the stallion that is Sterling's father, said, you know, horses can carry a full-term foal for up to 30 days waiting on optimal conditions. And because, you know, they're wild, that's something that I guess they handed down from evolutionarily from being wild herd animals. You know, you don't want your baby to be born in a blizzard. Well, the weekend he was due, because mares carry for around 11 months and 2 weeks. I mean, there's a bigger window than that, but that's kind of the rule of thumb, is 11 months and 2 weeks. At 11 months and 2 weeks, we had the Easter cold snap, and it got really super cold and it snowed. So she held on to him. And he was born 12 months and 10 days, and I was beside myself by the time he was born. He was the very first baby I ever had out here. And somebody said, well, you don't know when the mare bred. You don't know when the mare bred. I'm like, yes, I do. I know exactly when she bred, because I had taken her to the vet. I had her ultrasounded. I knew she was ready. I took her to Mr. Bewley's. I backed her off the trailer. I turned her out with Blue, his stallion. And while we were standing there talking, it all went down. And he called me the next day and he said, this mare is done. You need to come get her. She is not wanting to be around him. So I knew exactly when Sterling was conceived. Then when she had Sky, I kind of thought, well, she's going to go 12 months and 10 days again. Well, I had actually driven to Oklahoma to take some other mares over there. And we were at about the 11-month and 2-week mark, and I was thinking, well, she won't have anything until 12 months. She's gonna go long. And there had been a storm, and I was driving back that morning. I had spent the night at a friend's house, and I was driving back that morning, and I called my mother, and she said, Angel has a white baby with a black mane and tail. And I said, no, she doesn't, because Sterling was a solid bay roan, dark brown, black legs, black mane and tail, dark body. And Mom said, no, I'm telling you, there is a baby out here that is white with a black mane and tail. I'm like, you're seeing things. You've been drinking. What are you doing? Well, I got home, and sure enough, there was Sky with white with a black mane and tail. Now, she is also a bay roan, but she is much, much lighter, and she is spotted. Now, Sterling does not have any spots. Even though he's an Appaloosa, sometimes they can throw solids. Well, then, when I bred for Bo, and I mentioned last week, you know, all the things that went down with him, you know, we artificially inseminated with Bo. I ordered semen from a stallion in California, and so we knew exactly when he was bred, or when he was conceived, and I thought, well, she's going to go 11 months and 2 weeks. And so I'm at work, it's summer school, because we kind of we had to breed him twice. I can't remember. Yeah, no, it wasn't summer school. It was just summer, or no, it was just school, regular school. But I was in lab. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in lab, and we had to actually breed her twice because the first time she didn't take. But so I knew where we were. So it was 11 months, and Mom called and said, "Angel's got a white baby out here, and it's solid white." I'm like, "No, it's not." Well, sure enough, Bo pretty much was solid white when he was born. I have never ever found one of Angel's babies when he was even still wet. She goes off and hides and has them, and you know, because I could never even get her up in the barn to have one. Well, then we get to Trixie, and I thought, okay, she's going to go at 11 months because we'd kind of established this pattern now. We're going to go at 11 months. So I thought, okay, June 6th, June 7th, and I was actually teaching a summer camp, and I'd gotten home about 2:30 in the afternoon, and she was clearly uncomfortable. And there's different signs that you look for when a mare is getting close to delivering. She was clearly uncomfortable. And I'd had her up in a stall, so I let her out. I went down to the house to get a drink of water and change my clothes. And I came back up about an hour later, and she'd had her. But Trixie was still in the bag, partially. Her legs were still in the bag. And she was just trying to start to stand up. So I was very excited by that because that gave me the chance to handle her from day one, and that has made a huge difference in her, you know, attitude. You know, halter broke her at 3 days old. She has always been a very confident, independent young mare. You know, Angel was pretty well over having babies at that point. The first one, you know, she was a nervous Nelly mother, and the second one, she was still a little bit. This time, I remember going out when Trixie was like a week old, and Angel was way down in the front part of the pasture by the road, and Trixie's up by the barn, you know, probably 200 yards away, and Angel could care less, and neither could Trixie. And usually that's not the way babies are. Babies are usually very much attached to their mothers, but Trixie has always been very independent. But at her second birthday, I put a saddle on her for the first time, and I round pinned her for the first time, and she did just great. I was just amazed at how wonderful she is. So I'm really tickled to get her going. We started our summer riding program with the Rainbow Riders last week, where we ride 4 days a week. I usually get to the barn about 6:30 in the morning. Miss Marianne has already got her, as she calls it, her herd, the Foxtrotter herd, up and fed and turned them out, and I get my herd, or what we call the DB herd, which is either horses that I've donated or my own horses that are over there. Get them up and feed them, and then I usually have time to ride. She and I are usually up and riding by 7 o'clock or 7:15, and then the kids get there at 7:30. And one of the things about being a Rainbow Rider is you have to be able to groom and tack up yourself. Now, we do want a parent there watching to make sure nothing's going wrong, but you have to be able to groom and tack up your horse yourself. And then we ride, and what we've been doing is we've been splitting into 2 groups, and she takes a group and works on, you know, jumping or the play day stuff or whatever, and I take a group and work on fundamentals. So seat position, leg position, transition, smoothness of gait, regularity of gait, all that kind of stuff. And then we switch about halfway through, which works great for me because I'm working on getting ready to go to a dressage show in July. So it's great for me to get to work on those things for myself. This week we're doing a jump clinic, so we've split up into the Foxtrotter herd and the DB herd, and I work with my DB herd in the morning on fundamentals, and then we switch and I take the DB herd out and we work over some low jumps. And mostly we're teaching them just to be able to navigate obstacles on a trail. Personally, I don't want to jump anything too high on a trail because I don't know what's on the other side of it. I'm not an adventurous person that way. But anyway, so we're working with that with those things with them. Or on those things with them, I should say. And so we're in our second week, and then we will have 4 more weeks to go, and then we'll take some time off. But the exciting news is I have Bo on a list to go to a trainer. We talked about it, and in order to get him ready to go, there is a young woman who I have known about for a while. I actually went to school with her mother. She has a training program, or she takes horses and rides them and gets them going for people. And I talked with her, and now we're on the waiting list. So she said it'd be about a month, maybe a little bit more, before he could get in. But the nice thing is he will be consistently ridden for at least 30 days. So he should be ready. We should know at that point that we can put somebody on him, or we just need to be done. I have a feeling we'll be fine. But, he's going to the trainer, and I'm really excited about that. Now, Jacob came last Wednesday, and we worked on the barn again. We got the stalls completely finished, and then we drug everything out of the wash rack and cleaned everything up, and we also started cleaning out the tack room. And so we're almost ready to put everything back and start hanging the new feeders and hanging the new salt licks and the new buckets and everything. So I bought paint today to paint the trim, the metal trim on the outside of the barn. So I'm going to probably start on that. He's supposed to come this Wednesday, so we'll get started with that. The rabbits, I actually got given a rabbit this last week. There is a local wildlife rehabilitation facility, and someone had given her 2 rabbits. Now, I understand that this is the way life has got to be. They needed to live prey test an eagle. They had an eagle in rehabilitation, and if he could not hunt, he could not go back out into the wild. So there was a woman that had some extra rabbits, and she had donated 2 rabbits. They just needed 1, and the lady approached me and said, well, I don't know what to do with this other rabbit. Do you want it? And so I said, sure. Because she was just going to, I don't know what she was going to do with it. The eagle was gone, so she only needed to test it 1 time, and so I said, okay, I'll take it. So it is a Flemish Giant. It's a male Flemish Giant. So now I'm up to 5 male Flemish Giant rabbits, which I only needed 2 or 3, but now I'm up to 5. That's fine. I don't mind. I actually spent the last couple of days, I've got my ice bottles all going in the freezer. I try to keep 2 sets of ice bottles because, as I said, rabbits do not tolerate heat very well, so I've been trying to put ice bottles out. And today I had hung new fans. Well, one of the rabbits jerked the power cord in and chewed the power cord. Luckily it wasn't plugged in, or I would have had rabbit fricassee. But I hung up, had all the fans hung up, and I got power run out there, and so now I've got all the fans going on the rabbits, and it sounds like I'm running a miniature airport out there. I've got 9 fans going. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at on the farm. I did unmold my soap that I had made the other day. This is a very rustic bar. This is honey oatmeal soap. Okay, I had made this. It's a true lye soap. I had actually put it in a different mold, and it wasn't working out very well. It needed to be in a more simple mold. So I unmolded it and reheated it up, and I put it back in, I just put it in some simple rectangular molds. So I made about 10 bars of that. And then I also rendered some lard. I had a friend who had hogs processed, and they gave me some pork fat, and I rendered it down in my crock pot. All that means is I put it on the crock pot, let it melt, strained it out, and poured it into jars, because I like to use lard to season my cast iron with. I think it's probably the best, in my opinion, is one of the best and easiest oils to use. So I ended up with about 2 quarts of lard, out of that process. It was very simple. I just had to wait on it, and then I fed the scraps to my cats outside, my barn cats. They really enjoyed that. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. I wanted to read a little bit out of this book that I had picked up because I thought it was really interesting. It says, in the preface it says, "It is true that civilization begins and ends with the plow, as we were told by Alexander the Great. It is also true that the progress of nations heretofore and hereafter may be measured by the degree of intelligence that directs their plows." I thought that was a good phrase. I thought that was a good thing to ponder on, because sometimes I think we live in a world where there's this wave of anti-intellectualism that goes on about science and about, you know, it just seems to me that most of the things you watch on TV appeal to the lowest common denominator, and also on social media. So I like the idea of being smart about your farming. Okay, I've been rewatching, like I said, episodes of The West Wing, and you know, that show emphasizes intelligence, and some people see it as arrogance, and I don't agree with that. I think using your vocabulary and not being afraid to have the hard conversations and not being afraid to talk about difficult subjects, and even being able to say that you're wrong, you know, that's a talent. Being able, you know, that's a skill that we need, and that's a skill we need to cultivate. So definitely in farming there's a lot to learn. You know, my father did not leave me an instruction manual for how to do things, and so I've had to rely on friends and neighbors to help me and educate me about things. And sometimes you learn the hard way. Sometimes you learn not to leave the fan cord where the rabbit can get it. You know, or you get the chicks too hot and they die. Or you get the baby rabbits are born when it's too cold and they get outside the nest and they freeze. You know, it's hard. It's a school of hard knocks, but you become smarter. You become more intelligent. You learn to deal with these things, and you raise your intelligence level about all things. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that, you know, educating yourself about the quality of feed, educating yourself about how to best care for your animal's medical needs and things like that. So I like the idea of intelligence. So anyway, so that's my sort of my summary of what's going on here on the farm. So we'll come back and wrap up with a few final thoughts. Okay, guys, I know that in the last couple of weeks there have been a couple of celebrity deaths, and one that really hit home to me was Anthony Bourdain. The thing that I loved about him is he made us learn to be afraid, not to be afraid of other cultures, and not to be afraid of trying other people's food. And he learned, you know, he brought out the humanity in the whole world, and I loved that. But there was something else that happened also too, and it made me think along the lines of, don't assume. Okay, don't assume. I have been kind of taking a social media break on Facebook just because we live in a climate, politically it seems, and intellectually, where there is a lot of, you know, a lot of this where I'm right, you're wrong, you're an idiot, no, you're an idiot, I know you are, what am I, kind of crap going on. And I hate that. You know, if you sit and talk to reasonable people, you'll find that the vast majority of us are not that far apart in what we think is needed in this world to make the world a better place. But politicians on both sides like to keep us divided, and that frustrates me. And I saw a meme on somebody who I think a lot of's Facebook page, and it really bothered me. It was a meme that had, if you're familiar with the show All in the Family, which was from the 70s, it had Archie Bunker and his son-in-law Michael, but he called him Meathead. And Archie Bunker was painted with the brush of a very conservative. He was racist, he was homophobic, he was misogynistic, you know, kind of an older, you know, man. And then Meathead was the young, academic, hippy-dippy liberal. And the meme was, you know, here's Archie Bunker, the hardworking man, and here is the liberal son-in-law who is, you know, all liberals are freeloaders, all liberals want everybody else to pay their way, and all of this. And that bothers me. And I'll tell you why. And it's not just because I'm a liberal. I don't believe that all liberals are that way any more than I believe all conservatives are racist, homophobic, xenophobes. If you get to talking to most of them, they're not. What we hear is the loudest two ends of the spectrum. But if you're going to post something like that, then what you're doing is you're feeding into that divisiveness. And that bothers me. So don't assume that because someone believes a certain way that they must be this kind of person. Or if they believe this way, they must be this kind of person. You know, both sides of the spectrum have been bad about painting the other side with a very broad brush, and that's just ridiculous. And what that made me think of with Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, another person that I think a lot of posted something very, very, in my opinion, very, very hateful. You know, when someone commits suicide, people are trying to look for answers why. And we try to look at it through our lens, and that doesn't work. You cannot understand what was going on in that person's heart and mind and soul. So don't assume. Don't assume that just because they're successful. Don't assume that just because they seem to have the world on a string, you know, just don't assume. Don't assume about people. Get to know people. Talk to people. Talk to each other. Take care of each other. Check on each other. You know, if you have a friend that that has kind of dropped off the face of the earth, reach out to them. You know, now you may not hear back from them. They may not respond to you, but you never know that you just reaching out and saying, hey, you know, how are you? I miss you. You never know what kind of difference that might make, just them seeing that message. So don't assume. Don't assume anything. All right. Take care of each other. You know, like I always sign off, take care of each other. You know, nobody's getting out of here alive. We're all on this little rocky planet flying through space at, you know, tens of thousands of miles an hour. We need to take care of each other. So, my final thoughts today are, you know, get to know people. Talk to people. Ask questions. You know, don't assume that because they, you know, believe this or believe that, or go here or go there, or go to church or don't go to church, or pro-choice or pro-life or whatever. Don't assume that you know every single thing about that person. Get to know them. I think you'll find out that we're all connected through humanity, like the We Are All Connected video. I'll post a link to that. So, on that note, I hope you're doing good. I hope if you need to have somebody to talk to, feel free to message me. You know, I will post a link to the suicide prevention hotline down below. You know, I mean, the people who I visit with online, you know, they're my friends too. Just because we may have never met in person, y'all are still my friends. And I still care about how you're doing. So, until we meet again, y'all be good to each other. Take care of each other. And peace out. Bye.